fluctuates at times across the United States for every one seat that, that there's available in a graduate program somewhere, much less the concentrated areas like, you know, Southern California. You've got like at least 5 people asking for it, and that's just a reality. Our graduates have a very high successful rate of getting in somewhere. So when you speak with people like us right now in this meeting, when you speak to academic advisors, when you go and ask the individuals for letters of recommendation, which we need to talk about today, they say to you, and where else are you applying? And you say, oh, I'm applying to CSUN. They say, yes, and where else are you applying? That's not something that's meant to be disparaging. You cast a wider net rather than a narrow net. Now, we're not asking you to cast a net to, you know, 24 places across the United States, but it is a little unrealistic, and just to be, let's get the harder news out of the way first. It is a little unrealistic to say I'm going to apply to one place and put all of your hopes in one place. Now, a lot of you are embedded in the community, and we acknowledge that. You say, I can't go anywhere. I have community responsibilities that don't allow me to travel, and that is a very known variable. And in times when we went to graduate school, back in the dinosaur age, you know, anything that was like 5 years ago was like, wow, back in the dinosaur age. But you know, there were not the online programs. There are many very good online programs. And so if one of your recommenders, an advisor, department chair says to you, are you applying therefore to an online program? We don't want you to take that as an insult. If you're embedded in this community and you can't go anywhere, you make the program come to you. And that is an okay thing. Your goal is not necessarily to get into CSUN. Oh, I just said the hardest thing in the world. But that is not ultimately your goal. Your goal is to get into a program, either in speech-language pathology or audiology. You want to be our colleague. That is your ultimate goal. So your ultimate goal, therefore, needs to have more than just one site, us. So if you cannot travel out of the area, you need to be looking at least some of the online programs for which you would have a high probability of being considered, okay? And we will help you, because our goal is to get our students into graduate programs and ultimately to be our colleagues. And then of course we want all of you to stay here. But that also, we just said, right, that's not realistic. So that's the first happy and difficult thing that I want you to hear. So you need to apply, we're gonna help you to apply, but you do not just apply thinking, okay, I'm a CSUN undergrad, I'll apply to CSUN and they're going to naturally accept me, because we have far more applicants to our program than we even have seats for. And we are the largest program in the state of California. On the state side, we typically bring in about 50 students every year. Our online brings in 60. So between our two programs, that's a lot of graduate students. You look at other places, some places are small enough that they take 23, 24, some maybe up to 32 in the brick and mortar places. Okay, so that's the first thing. I'm encouraging you to apply. I'm encouraging you to keep envisioning that your ultimate goal is to get into graduate school, and let's uncover ways to make that happen. Okay, that's my intro statement. Would you like to make an intro statement? Would you like me to make it for you?
I'm trying to think what I would say as an intro versus what I would say otherwise.
Okay.
But
yeah, lots of otherwise
well,
topics.
I am Dr. Stryk-Rustos, and I am the coordinator of the admissions program, which means that I work with the office staff to get the application organized, to get it online, although it's our office staff who really does the actual getting it up online. And then I coordinate organizing all of your files and sending them out to our committee for review. We have a faculty at large committee, so that means just about everyone on our faculty reads an assortment of applications. It's random, but every application is read by 2 faculty members, so I kind of coordinate all of that, and then I coordinate the way that we evaluate students. I help get all of the ratings put together, and I oversee that whole process. And that's what I would say as an introduction. I have a lot of other information to give you, but
Okay.
I'll pass it over first for your introduction.
Yeah, okay, I'm Dr. Yu, and most of you know me because you are my speech science or phonetics. I am, in terms of this, I am one of the committees on board reviewing your application. And this is my first time to be here in Q&A section, so I don't know what else I can do.
That's a good intro. That's a good intro. Okay. So I don't think we had a specific agenda. There are things that I know we need to talk about. One of them would be a topic of, I don't know if I read it down, the topic of the GRE. Most of you are thinking about that. Letters of recommendation, most of you are thinking about that. What do you do about this statement of intent? Do you need to apply to the department? Yes. You need to apply to the university at large? Yes. And those I know we need to talk about. Other topics, without explaining, just other topics you want to talk about? Other topics?
Why don't I start by giving an overview of the whole process?
Sounds good, and I'll
Okay.
make sure I'll write topics down so that we make sure that we cover them.
It's awkward to stand in front of a classroom without a PowerPoint or something to work from. But, so, this is kind of how it goes. Right now, you need to have completed, and I'm sure if you're graduating soon, you will have this, but you need to have completed all of your undergraduate prerequisite coursework and have your undergraduate degree by the time you start grad school. So if you're planning on when you should apply, you need to make sure that you have all of those things completed before you start. The applications are online, and they will be available starting October 1st. We don't have that tight 1-month deadline, window that the undergraduate applications have. Stays open until January 15th. And that's when the applications are due. That's a drop dead application packet complete deadline. Your application, there's no way to submit it, and if you mess up, there's no way for us to go in and open it for submission. So don't leave things till the last minute, because there's no way to give you any grace period on that application deadline. You will need to submit 2 applications. One through the liaison portal for the CSUN graduate program, just CSUN to be a graduate student, okay? The other is a specific department application that's available on our department website, CSUN website. Now, in the past, and I confirmed this, unfortunately, Ms. Aguayo couldn't be here today to answer questions about the front office and the workings from that perspective, but we plan to have a link to Liaison on our website. But, so, try going to our website first, the department website, and you'll definitely, that's the only place you can find the department application. But it's an online application. It's not something that you're gonna go to and print and then bring to the office. In fact, we have no way of accepting paper, hard copy applications. You have to submit them online. Part of that will be demographic information. Part of that will be uploading transcripts. Just CSUN, we don't need official transcripts for CSUN. If you have a copy of official transcripts, they're always better. The university application will ask you also for transcripts. Those must be official. I mean, obviously, the CSUN, you don't have to submit a CSUN transcript to CSUN. But if you went to a junior college and picked up some courses, if you, I can't think of what else might have been. If you transferred here from another school, you might need transcript. If you're a pre-CDS, well, you got your undergraduate degree in something else, somewhere else, and then you're applying, you need to upload all of those. The university requires official. We don't require official CSUN transcripts, but we do need all transcripts. Also, part of that application is going to be a statement of intent. We have specific prompts, and you really need to address those prompts. Pay attention to that. That's something that our reviewers look at. How well did you address the prompt? As well as the content from, is your personality showing through? Does it seem authentic? Is it well written? Some of those things, and I'm sure Dr. Yu and Dr. Seymour will have some comments about that too. You're also going to need 3 letters of recommendation. And when you are in the department application, it'll ask you to submit email addresses for 3 recommenders. And you can only submit 3. It won't allow you to submit more than 3. For our program, we recommend at least 2, if not all 3 academic faculty. If you're a SLPA or you are working with, as an aide in a classroom or something like that, and you're supervised by a speech language pathologist, that person would be okay. However, don't ask the principal of the school. They haven't seen you work. They don't know. So we're not gonna give that letter of recommendation as much attention as we would give a letter from faculty or someone directly supervising you. What else about the letters of recommendation? We have a process. Should I just start talking about all of
The
this?
letters of recommendation,
Yeah.
they're still on there?
So,
Because I have lots of opinions about those.
yes. So let me give you the overview, and then we'll hear Dr. Seymour criticize everything I'm gonna say. I'm not kidding. I am totally kidding. She'll give you more information, but so the letter of recommendation should be someone who knows you well. And you probably should go and ask them now. You should definitely ask them ahead of time if they're willing to write it for you. We expect that our students will ask us for letters. So we're expecting you to knock on our door if you've been in our class and say, hello, could I have a minute of your time? And then talk to us about a letter of recommendation. It doesn't sit right with us if we review an application for any of you and you haven't asked the faculty. So it's a good thing to ask us, and we expect it, and so do that, okay? Do it respectfully, don't assume we'll say yes. Think about faculty who know you a little better. Think about the classes that you've done well in. Think about, okay, so, yeah, I think you have the idea there, okay? When you come in, we're gonna ask you for a packet of information, okay? And back when we were on Moodle, we had a Moodle site. I'm not sure what we're doing with Canvas, but this is what the packet should be. It should be a transcript, a CSUN transcript, just unofficial, go onto Solar, print out a transcript. Okay, so include that in your packet of all the time here, okay, that you've been here. It should include a paragraph, not a big lengthy essay, and we don't want and we cannot preview your statement of intent. So do not include your statement of intent. Okay, we can't give you feedback on that, we can't read it, right, because that's not fair, because we're gonna, use that, you're gonna submit that to be part of your application. A paragraph, what you're interested in, it's when we write these letters, we may know you as students, and we may or may not know you very well as people. So anything you can write in that paragraph about your interests and talents that can help us personalize the letter for you. I like it if students say, hey, this is, so-and-so, I was in your 451 class spring of, and then give me the year, because that helps me then go locate my records, for your grades and some of your work. The other thing that I ask for, and I think this is pretty common too, is a picture. And just one that you print, you can even print it right on the same page that you put your little paragraph. And please, don't give me a picture of you drinking in a bar with all your friends, because that's gonna be like, whoa, what kind of judgment does this person have? All this time I thought they were really professional and they're giving me this picture. But, so the reason for that is some of our classes are very large, and I may know your face and I don't know always the name as well as I should. So that helps us a lot. So your packet is gonna have a resume, or if you have one, it's gonna have a paragraph, it's gonna have the picture, and it's gonna have a transcript. Now, you're gonna put that in one of those manila envelopes, those big ones, and then on the outside, you're going to, and we'll make this form available to you, where the application on the department website with the application, it'll be a tracking form. On that tracking form, you're gonna list the schools that you're applying to, or at least the schools to which you're gonna be sending our name, because most schools now, there are one or two that still do paper and pencil kinds of letters of recommendation forms, but for the most part, most graduate programs now have online applications. So on this tracking form, you're gonna put the names of the schools, and you're gonna indicate whether it's a paper and pencil or an online submission. For those online programs, what happens is you provide our email, okay? And that's only after you've already talked to us about it, because I don't like it if I get, if I get an email that says so-and-so has asked you to write a letter of recommendation, are you willing to do it? That's what the emails usually say, and I'm like, nope, didn't ask me, not gonna do it. So make sure before you fill out those applications and put our email that you've talked to us about it first. Confirm our preferred email. I think for all the faculty it's our CSUN email addresses, but that's a good thing to confirm. When you do that, they then send us this email with a link. We click the link, we have a password, we go in. We cannot see any other of your letters of recommendation. We only have a link to submit ours. Sometimes they have a form they want us to fill out, sometimes it's a form and a letter, sometimes it's just a letter they want us to write. We upload it, we click, and it goes to them. You then get an email confirming that we sent it, we get an email confirming that they received it. So that's the letters of recommendation.
I have something to say. So for the table of the school you are going to apply, I would be appreciate that you also put the due date.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that we
sorry.
won't,
Yeah.
miss the due date for you.
Right, and there are different due dates.
Yeah.
I meant to say this, when you go to talk to the faculty, a person, and ask them to write a letter for you, let us know if there are any due dates before January 15th. Because for most of us, we have in our mind, okay, January 15th. There are a few universities around that have earlier deadlines, and we need to, to know that. Sorry, yes, thank you.
Okay, so can I'm gonna now expand on a whole bunch of things of letters of recommendation. Dr. Streck-Russo tackles the letters of recommendation from, especially the graduate coordinator for the applications. And then I like to tell you the personal things, that, you probably may have thought about or not thought about. Like how to approach a professor, how to ask them. When do you ask? I know Dr. Streck-Russo's mentioned, now's a good time, but, there's some other things involved in it. And then if you have a supervisor that you're going to ask, how do you ask that supervisor? So is it okay if I jump in on some of those things now?
Go for it.
Okay, so, I'm real big on role playing throughout this. So how do you ask an instructor for a letter of recommendation? First of all, you can't assume that the answer is going to be yes for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the quantity is just too enormous. The most I've ever written in terms of individual people is 105 individuals. Of those, some people applied to one place, some people applied to 12 places. So you can imagine 105 people, just one letter alone, let alone 5 for every one of those individuals. And I swear I could never do that again, because it takes me at the minimum an hour and a half for every student. So we're looking at, over 105 hours just for writing letters of recommendation. And sometimes, that just wasn't possible. So it might be that you go to one of your professors and they say, I cannot, I've reached my limit. And that's especially true for our part-time faculty, right? So Dr. Carajalios, Dr. Malin, Ms. LaRue, all of our part-time, Ms. Lori Cartwright, which if you are in Ms. Lori Cartwright's class for 690, she is a person you want to ask for a letter of recommendation. She is teaching you a clinic-based course. So if you are in 4690, that is a treasured letter. A clinic supervisor letter holds a large weight in the application process. I'm gonna be upfront. That's not just here, that's anywhere, okay? So that's one of the first things. I would, as Dr. Streck-Russo's told you, I would go up to Dr. Streck-Russo's, Dr. Yu, and I'd say, hi, I am PJ Seymour, and I was in your 451 class. I was in your CD 442 class in spring of 2017. And I'm going to be applying for graduate school, and I was wondering if you could write me a supportive or positive letter of recommendation. Notice what I said, that supportive, positive letter of recommendation. And then you pause, and then they're gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions, right? But you've already introduced yourself, you reminded them when you were in the course, and then you've already asked them if this could be a supportive letter. You don't want somebody to write you a letter that can't support you. It's very difficult for us to receive letters, and some people don't ask. Usually this is another program, and they'll say, this person never asked me for a letter of recommendation, I'm responding because I received this email. Just imagine being on the committee and reading that. Imagine that you've gone to Dr. Yu, and I had you in fall of 2017, and I'm applying for graduate schools for fall of 2019. Would you write me a letter of recommendation? And she says, have you talked to me since fall of 2017? No, I haven't. Oh, that's been a year. So if you're going to ask somebody for a letter of recommendation, it would be good once a month to go in. Go in and say hello, and you're not gonna sit down for 30 minutes. or you're going to stop Dr. Strike Russo's, you just saw her reaction.
No,
So,
once a month, once a semester would be okay.
Once a semester.
I don't need 100 students from my 2 classes coming in once
okay,
a month to
so
say
in the
hello.
hallway, all right, see, these are things to, can you imagine, these are things to consider. So, in the hallway, hi, Dr. Strike Russo's, you know, I was in, if you need to. You know, I haven't seen you for 3 months, you know, be cheerful, right? You want to keep these relationships going. If you ever take a moment to look at the letter's recommendation, and you should, there's, you know, there'll be, the skeleton is available to you. We are asked to describe you in a variety of ways. We usually have to rank you on a scale of 1 to 5, on a scale of 1 to 10. So if you're in our academic courses, great, you know, how well did you do in the course? What is your leadership potential? If you've not spoken to us at least once a semester, I don't know. Now, Nisla's here. You better believe we're speaking more than once a semester. But the rest of you, what is your leadership potential? Oh my gosh, I'm not in Nisla. Oh, were you in the study group? What role did you play in the study group? Dr. Yu, I was in 2 study groups, and in one study group, I really was one of the leaders. You also might remember that so-and-so and so-and-so was in my study group. Okay? Put that in your short paragraph. Remember Dr. Strike Russo's talked about the short paragraph? I was in 2 study groups, typically every semester, including when I was in your course. I contributed by. That's 2 sentences, right? Oh, we can talk to the next line that we're asking you to rate, that we're asked to rate you on. What is your collaboration with other peers and professionals? We need to know something about you in order to answer these questions. We don't want to have to say, cannot respond, okay? There was one student who I will say came and asked me, and the student, I said, I don't really know you. I do remember that you used to sit in my class always to my left, 3/4 of the way back. And that's all I know about you. And this person said, well, I didn't feel I should talk much in class. I said, well, I often ask people to talk in class, but you never came to my office hours either. No, coming to office hours is sucking up to the professor. You know, it's like, well, you know, I don't know that much about you, and just told me something that rather than building a professional relationship with me, you told me that this is sucking up to a professor. How do I rate you on interprofessional,
Or
just, you know,
taking initiative
Taking
is one of the
initiative.
items on a lot of the rating
Yeah.
scales.
So it's not just when we, and you should go look at these letters of recommendation that we have to fill out. There's skeletons of them all over the website, and websites, I should say. Look at how we need to rate you. And if we don't know anything about you, we're not going to rate you. We're gonna say cannot rate, cannot rate, cannot rate.
May I make a comment
Please
about
do.
that? So, this is what happens, we're gonna have about over 300 applications.
At least.
And 300 that are viable. About 200 of those would be students we would gleefully accept if we could, but we can't. When we read a letter of recommendation, let's say you're a really good student, you have good GRE scores, you have good grades, but you're someone who is quiet and kept to themselves, the kind of person that Dr. Seymour is talking about. This is what the letters of recommendation are gonna sound like. I was asked to write a letter of recommendation for so-and-so, and I am happy to do so. This student was in my 451 articulation phonology class. He or she, you know, earned an A and, you know, consistently performed well. And then I'm gonna read the letter, you know, the paragraph, and I'm gonna say, oh, and she showed, or he has showed their commitment to the field by volunteering. Does that give a sense for who you are? No, that is gonna sound like 150 of those 200 people that we would gleefully take into the program. So your job, and it's not an easy one, is to figure out how you can make your authentic person stand out. throughout the whole application, definitely in the statement of intent, but also helping your recommenders to, you know, highlight some of your more unique or what you consider to be the strengths or what you can contribute. And then we can write that. And I have read some pretty wacky things in these paragraphs, but they may be wacky and colorful and sweet and thoughtful or bold or whatever, and I can turn that into, this is gonna be a great speech pathologist because they're gonna be creative, they're gonna be this, they're gonna be that. So, you know, not that I want you writing a lot of wacky things in
No,
your
please don't.
paragraphs, but be authentic, and that's a word I use a lot, and it's kind of overused, but we need to hear you and see you.
And
And,
if you're volunteering, and you mention, don't say I volunteer with preschoolers, that's wonderful. I volunteer with preschoolers at, give me the site, give me the person that, that is supervising you, okay? Give me the website.
And tell me something you learned from that experience.
Yes, that, and I check websites, by the way. You know, so if you tell me I'm here, and I go to the website, I wanna check and see where you are. Now, right about now is where people start to panic, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is September, and this is due January 15th, and there might be about a quarter of you that like, I'm nowhere close now to any of my instructors, I don't know what to do, they're not gonna know me. So here's what I suggest also. So remember, we're never gonna say anything that we don't give you a boost on how to resolve a difficulty. And there may be an instructor right now that this is the first time I've had you, the first time I've had Dr. Yu. And I really want Dr. Yu to write me a letter of recommendation, but it's September, and she's gonna probably, you know, write me a letter fairly soon. How does she know who I am? So, she's not gonna write the letter probably until the first part of January. So.
She's gonna wait and see how you do in her class.
She's gonna wait and see how you do in the class. So, then I can come up and say, Professor Yu, I'm PJ Seymour, and right now I'm in your 442 class, and I wouldn't be, because that's too far away. Otherwise, well, never, I won't go there. I'm in your 442 class, and I'm gonna be applying for graduate school for fall of 19, and I know letters are gonna be due January 15th. Would you please watch me the rest of the semester while I participate in your class? I am going to shine. And I want you to be aware of who I am, and I'm asking you to watch me so that in November I can come back and ask you once again to write me a letter, and you'll feel comfortable saying possibly yes or no. Sure. Practice that in the mirror. So there are instructors that you have right now that you really would like them to write you a letter, but you can't ask them to give it to you too soon. They don't know you well enough. Please watch me this semester while I'm in your class. And then you do things like speak up appropriately. It's not about grandstanding, I have to answer every question, but when there's a question I can answer thoughtfully, a question I can ask thoughtfully, that's when I'm gonna talk up in class, right? I'm gonna participate in the projects. If I'm having an in-class project, you better believe I'm gonna be chatting with my group. So when Dr. Strike-Russos is wandering around, wondering how you're doing in that project in 451, Dr. Strike-Russos is gonna see you collaborating with your peers, because you're gonna be asked in your letter of recommendation, how well does this person collaborate with others? So if you're in that position of, I haven't done any of this that they're talking about at this point, you're okay, you're okay. You have this semester, and you're going to give the instructor though a heads up, okay? Not ask them in December, oh, did you watch me? You know, type of thing. So the planning is really important. All right, so that third letter of recommendation that might come from a supervisor. So here's my hint for that. If you're going to ask somebody who is a superior to you to write you a letter of recommendation for our field, remember it's for our field, I would get my hands on the skeletal version of the letter of recommendation and give it to them now. And do the same thing. Dear lovely supervisor, I'm going to be applying for graduate school for fall of 19. The letter is going to be due no later than January 15th. here are the questions that are gonna be asked from you. Will you watch me in these areas? And remember, it's about what I'm currently at and the potential you see in me. You're not gonna ask somebody that's not already gonna write you a wonderful letter about how wonderful you are at your site. Come on time, professional image, collaborate well with peers, that's you right now. But what do they see in you that they say, this person really needs to move on to graduate studies? See, there's a potential there, right? You want them to be able to mention something about your future potential, not just where you are right now. So that's something I would advise you, if you're gonna ask for a supervisor's letter of recommendation, show them the letter now. Let them see how they're going to have to address different aspects of you, and then remind them, it's not just about how great I am right now. I am great, you know. But it's about what you see in my potential, that I will be a colleague eventually in the field. So those are things we don't typically think about. What if I have an instructor this semester I wanna ask, you know, to be one of my recommenders, that's what I wanna also encourage you. It's okay, you can do that, but you need to plan now. And then if I'm gonna ask for a supervisor, what kind of letter will we be looking for from that person? How great you are right now, but why they see a potential in you that makes them encourage you to go on to graduate school. Okay, that's what I would say about letters of recommendation. All right, next topic, yes?
For me, is that
Yes.
I just want to point out in terms of the letter of recommendation is that you really want to really make sure your professor knows you and just show up on time. Because I have experienced that I had a student email me, like actually the student took my courses a year ago. The name looked very familiar to me. And then she also, that student also mentioned like, oh, she's in what course and then what year and then what grade, the final grade that she got. But for some reason, I just cannot recall her face. So I said, yeah, sure, I will definitely write a recommendation letter, but maybe you can come in quickly, briefly, then we can chat about how come I would write your letters. But she never show up. And then that's one thing is that, very interesting is that she never show up, but I'm say, okay, I'm going to write a recommendation letter. And then one time I have my door open in my office. I was meeting with another student, and I saw one student pass by the room. Look like she's going around looking for something. So I say, hey, may I help you? May I help you? And it turns out she's that student who asked me to write a recommendation letter. So she just come by to drop a form for me to fill out. So I just want to let you know that you really want to make sure your recommender knows who you are.
Right, because, you know, we started this by saying it's a very competitive field. And we wish we could accept everyone who's qualified. But programs, and that's definitely true for us, but I think it's true for all the programs. We want good students who are gonna be successful in the graduate program, but we want really good people too, who are gonna be successful as clinicians and professionals throughout their career lifetime. So that's where the part knowing us comes in, and getting us to know you comes in. Right.
Yep.
So I'm looking, thank you for putting an agenda, where are you? Thank you for putting an agenda
It was
up.
all Dr. Seymour.
Oh, did you write this?
I did.
Okay, so, let's go back to the top, GRE. Yeah, oh gosh, the GRE. There's a trend, for universities to, no longer require the GRE. However, our department is going to continue requiring the GRE. So if you hear something about CISA no longer requiring a GRE, that's fine, but our department still does. So I wanna make that very clear, either the GRE or the MAT. And we have a list, we have reasons for wanting to do that, and it's not to make your lives miserable. But, you know, at the end of graduate school, you have to take a really big test that ASHA has, and it's multiple choice. And if you've gone from high school to a JC to CSUN to grad school without ever taking a big standardized test, we don't want the ASHA exam to be your first big test like that. So it really works to your benefit in the long run. The thing about the GRE, we don't have a minimum requirement. We do not have, we have what we call a holistic review process, which means we read every application, we read every detail, we read everything that is submitted, and we take it all in to make a final decision. We do have some what are called hard filters, okay? If your GPA is below a 3.0, that's a hard filter. The university won't let us accept you, and we don't think you'll be successful. Okay, so that's a hard filter, meaning I read every single application, but I don't send out the applications with GPAs below 3.0 to the rest of the faculty to be reviewed. Okay, we do not have a hard filter for GRE, which means we don't disqualify any applications based on the GRE. Okay, it just contributes to, a picture of you. Okay, if you have a good GPA, but your GRE isn't that great, we know there are reasons why GRE scores can be low, and students still be really successful. We have our data from our students that support that, okay? I don't know if you want to say anything else about that. I don't know what the MA is.
I'm sorry,
Miller's
I forgot the
Analogy
T.
Okay,
Yeah.
MAT is the Miller's Analogy
that.
test, which is an alternative to the GRE for us. But if you're applying to other programs, which we've already said you should, they may not accept the MAT. They may require the GRE, so you need to think about that. If you've already taken the GRE and you weren't happy with your score, because I get a lot of students coming in and talking to me about this whole thing, the deal with the GRE and retaking it is you're not likely to improve your score unless the first time you took it, there's a reason why you didn't do well. Like you weren't feeling well, you didn't prepare at all. Okay, we know that taking a prep class or even studying and preparing using all the online options that are available can help. But if you did those things and you felt well on the day you went in, you may not have felt well when you left, but if you felt well when you went in, okay, we know that it's not likely that you're going to improve your score, and certainly not enough to make a difference. I always recommend that students put their energy into doing well in school or doing something else, okay? Instead of trying to go through that whole stressful thing of retaking the GRE. So again, if you didn't feel you were completely prepared and it did, you weren't ready for it, that's different. But there's no real reason to retake it if you felt that you did your best the first time. And in fact, you could go down. Okay, right? There's always that possibility.
But always make sure wherever else you are applying that you look at their minimum requirements, because many
Yeah,
places do have
that's
a
true.
minimum requirement on the GRE. Yes?
What's considered a good score for the GRE?
I happen to like to see at least one of the categories above the 50th percentile.
Okay.
And I happen to like to see a 3.5 on the writing for higher.
I can tell you that the students, okay, so you all know what the mode is, right? Mean, median, mode, most often. So the mode for student, on the GRE score for students who get accepted into our program is about 300. So if you're thinking, okay, what do I shoot for? That's the closest kind of estimate I can give you, a 300. But having said that, remember, that's just the mode. We have students who get in who are much lower than that, to tell you the truth, and some that are higher than that. You know, the students who have low GREs tend to be students for whom English may not be their first language or their only language that they grew up with. Students who, what are some of the other reasons?
Sometimes, even if English is your first language, your first generation.
Yeah, if you're first generation. There are, you know, reasons that the GRE may be low, but we value the single, well, there are two things we value most highly. One is the GPA in the major.
Yes.
So if you are trying to figure out where to put your energy, that should be your priority. The second would be our judgment of your writing and the letters of recommendation, you know, your personal qualities. When you're talking about supervisors and having experience in the field, I know that not all of you have been, you know, SLPAs, speech aids, behavior interventionists, or whatever. So don't panic if you don't have that on your resume, and I don't want you to go out and try to start putting bullet points on a resume that are not meaningful.
No.
So, you know, it's better to have, you know, if you don't have anything that shows a commitment to helping people or working with people, whether it's being a camp counselor or something else, if you don't have anything like that, you may want to, you know, stop in on a local elementary school and, you know, spend some time, see if you can spend some time with a speech pathologist or something like that. But it's not how many, like shadowing a speech pathologist at Northridge Hospital for a day, that doesn't mean anything to us. But going into a first grade classroom and, you know, tutoring and reading or spending, you know, volunteering once a week for something like that means a lot to us. And those are things you tell us in your paragraph and your statement of intent. So it's about quality, not the quantity necessarily. One more thing about letters of recommendation that just popped into my head. And that is because I was thinking behavioral interventionist or whatever. Occasionally we get students who ask the parent of someone that they tutor or work with to write the letter of recommendation. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because they're not objective. You know, they're gonna say you're wonderful, their child loves you, their child has made a lot of progress, but that's usually emotional. And that's not what we're looking for in a letter of recommendation. So I would suggest you not do that.
And I mean, if I'm wrong, you can point out. So it is okay if you cannot find a letter of recommendation letter from the supervisor. It is fine that you can have 3 letters all from your professors.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
absolutely.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So don't stress out that you have to find 1 letter from the supervisor.
Right. But that's just because sometimes people do ask.
Right. And that third letter could be from a professor somewhere else in the university. Let's say you did a project with someone in another department. You know, that's fine. That could be the third letter.
Yeah.
So my question was similar to that, regarding if we are asked, like, can we ask, a professor from like a JC community, like a community college that we took, and it was like a sign language course or something that kind of ignited us an interest in what we're doing now, and can we ask those students, are those?
Have you kept in contact with that professor at the JC? Oh, you don't have to say yes or no. First of all, have you kept in contact with that person, or was that person that you last time saw them a year ago? I wouldn't ask that person. I mean, if you're gonna reach out and reach back that far, or to another institution, you better have kept in contact with them, right? Because they continue to know you. Otherwise, they're pulling on something that was from 3 semesters ago, right? But yes, if there's another individual here on campus, or if you've been involved with that, if you have kept in contact and involved, but can have, double semantic meaning there. But if you've been in contact with previous academics and you've remained that, in that relationship, absolutely. So, a lot of times we have to say, how long have I known the person? And if I've known this person for 3 years, when they write you that letter, I expect to see updated information, not just information that you've told them, this is what I've done since I've last seen you. Yeah, so that's a really good question, because that can be a make or break, right? Yeah.
Okay, so what if you become a slipper down the line as a year comes and you wanna apply for graduate school, right? How would those recommendations work out? Cause, would you still go back to your professors after you graduated?
Such a good question. Okay, so for those audio recording or iPad recording, so the question is, if I need to take a year off, and I'm going to work as a slipper, and now I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna apply for graduate school in fall of 2020, or maybe even fall of 2021. So can I come back to my professors and ask, if you're planning on taking a year off, and sometimes you have to work, you have to put food on the table, you have to put gasoline in your car, right? Not everybody can go straight on. You're gonna remain in contact with those professors. You don't let a year go by and say, oh, by the way, right? So you reach out to them once a semester and say, remember me? And, take the picture that you have on your smartphone with you cuddling your puppies or your kittens, or, send it along. This is what I've been doing. I'm just keeping you involved because I know I'm gonna be applying.
Right,
later
so
on.
I actually have a student who's in the process of doing that now, and this is what she did. She sent me an email in the middle of summer. Now, I know this sounds a little pesky, but I actually liked it. So she sends me an email in the middle of summer. It was really great seeing you at graduation. Phew, I'm so happy that I finished, I made it, okay? But that's sweet in
It
a lot
is,
of ways.
yeah.
And then, I'm just checking in with you, these are email, just checking in with you, I want you to know I just got accepted into Loma Linda's, SLIPA program, or CSUNS, or whatever the SLIPA, whatever, I just got my thing. Oh, I'm doing my field work for my SLIPA license at such and such a school, and I'm loving it. Oh, I am now on the, getting all my ducks in line to apply for grad school. I'm still at such and such, or I got a job when I finished my field work for the SLIPA license, I now have been working at such and such a school with such and such kids. I really like it, I'm so happy, I can't wait to apply to grad school. So with 3 or 4 email during that year, and she had something to say, it wasn't just like, hello, I'm checking in. It was really, and her personality comes through in each one of those emails. So that's what I suggest you do. Not like every week, but, at every landmark.
That's if you're in on campus, every month I said, every month.
Send them to Dr. Seymour. But she had, she was marking all those landmark experiences, and I was right with her through that whole process and cheering her on kind of thing. So I think that's what you wanna do. So when it came time for me to write that letter, it was like, I can't wait to write a letter for her, because I wanna tell people what she's been doing and how professional she's been in terms of her correspondence with me.
And then there's also joining the California Speech Language Hearing Association, so that you can go to conferences, you can volunteer. I could volunteer at the Castro Convention, 2019 as a student. For those of you that maybe you're not applying in fall of 19, maybe you're applying spring of 20 for a distance program, or fall of 20, as a current student, you can apply at Castro because it's going to be in Southern California, so you don't have to travel that far. So you want to be involved in the profession, and then remember what I said about the supervisor letters? So now you're gonna ask your supervisor for a letter, because you've been out for a year or 2. And remember that letter's gonna, you're gonna ask that supervisor, make sure you watch me to see what potential I have to contribute to the field by going to graduate school. Being a SLIPA is not the same as being a speech language pathologist. Okay, they are different degree, levels. So we need to see that you're gonna be successful in graduate studies. Eventually, as an SLP, you'll be a supervisor over the SLPAs. So there are many things that we want those letters to speak to your future. Yeah.
Is it smart to ask more than 3 professors? Like, more than the 3?
We accept only 3.
No, I know, I understand that, but like, say I'm planning on going to talk to her, should I also be like, well, if she can't do it, have it ready for other professors?
She'll
Or
tell you.
just immediately?
Yeah,
Okay.
she'll tell you yes or no. Dr. Malin will tell you yes or no.
Okay, so just be
Dr.
prepared.
Beal, yeah,
Okay.
because you don't want, honestly, I mean, remember my 105?
Yeah.
I mean, I spent my entire 2 weeks that the university is closed, this is what I did 16 hours a day. To make sure that those letters were well written and, reflected the students, I got them all in on time. And if a student doesn't use my letter, then I would probably be a little
Yeah.
miffed. So you want to
I
ask the
understand that.
people, and then if something happens that, and emergencies happen, we know it happens in your life, it does happen in our life. Unfortunately, when an emergency happens in our life, it affects the entire class, type of thing. But then there might be another person that you need to approach at the last minute.
That's kind of what I meant. Okay.
Yeah, and you might have to approach them and say, by the way, Dr. Seymour tripped and broke her leg and she can't get my letter of recommendation written. Dr. Strike Russo's, I was in your 451 class and your 469A class, and I'm asking, would you please write me a letter because of this woman over here with a broken leg, that can't write me my letter. Yeah, but get your 3 and rely on them and keep track of them, yeah. Okay, so, I think it's pretty, we got the open and close dates, so our application for our department opens on October 1st, it closes in January 15th. The one thing I would say is, start your application, you don't have to complete it, but get it started. And just don't hit the submit button. I would, if at all possible, if the application is not due until January 15th, February 1st, whenever it is, keep it open, keep it updated with your fall transcript.
Yeah, it's a good idea, especially because, a lot of you who are in 451, 469A, maybe 450, maybe 462, those are disorders courses, and you want those grades to show up on your transcript.
Yeah. So those grades will be posted.
Hopefully you want those grades
Yeah.
to show up on your transcript.
So they'll be posted, December 24th, download an unofficial copy, upload them into the electronic site, then hit submit. Okay, you want as many of your courses going to advocate for you as possible. And I would say that holds for as many places as possible to where you are applying. If you can wait, don't wait to start the application, but wait to submit it until you have your final grades for this semester, if at all possible.
And the email will go out to the recommenders
Yes.
before you submit your application. So
Yes.
you're not holding that up. Soon as you are at the page where you supply their email, it will go out to the recommenders.
Yeah. And the same goes for, CAD, CDS, I think it is, the initials of it. The same thing happens. As soon as you put the people in there, we get the emails that you've requested the application. What time do we have to stop?
2:15.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, can I say one more thing about GPAs? Okay, so, again, these are one of the things that, my big thing is to, maybe you've encountered this, and then how do we pull out of it, okay? Remember Dr. Strike Russo said we really, in our department, we are so interested in GPA in the major. Some of us had a slow start to college. Some of us, some of you, I always just insert myself into whatever population I'm in, so, right now, I'm applying, so some of us had a slow start to college, and it was when we hit audiology. It was when we hit speech pathology that we said, oh my gosh, I have found my home. And our GPA shifted, right? So you look at, oh, my GPA major really is very strong. My GPA, my first 2 years of my JCs, when I was hopping around from department to department, I hadn't found my home yet, I wasn't really happy, and I didn't know that I needed to get above a C. My niece who is incredibly intelligent, yes, I'm on camera saying that, she's incredibly intelligent, she was getting ready to graduate, and she says, I don't understand this, they're telling me that my GPA is below a B, it's below 3.0, she says, I get Bs in my courses. She should have gone A's, but yeah, she didn't like studying. And I said, okay, well, have you gotten B minuses? Oh yeah. It's like, well, okay, a B minus is a 2.77. A B minus is not a 3.0. I said, so you need to pull those B minuses. Are you getting any B minuses this semester? This is the semester she's graduating. And she says, yeah. I says, well, you gotta pull them up. Okay, I will. And she did, gotta open up that book, cracks. Yeah. So, sometimes we got really comfortable knowing that we were doing very well getting C's. C is an incredibly respectable grade, but a C is a 2.0. And then we got B's, which is a 3.0, so those average out. But then all of a sudden we hit audiology. Oh my gosh. And now I'm getting the A's. So I have all my community college grades, but now I've got my audiology in major grades, and there's a difference here. But nonetheless, they're kind of averaging out to not to what I want to be. I will say in your statement of intent, somewhere, if it's, you can work it in without making it sound like you squeeze it in where it doesn't belong, in 2 sentences, you can make that statement, all right? You don't wanna spend a whole bunch of time explaining away that you didn't know to take things a little bit differently, that C was a good grade. No, you could say something very simple to the point of, I was performing well in my early college years, but when I hit audiology, truly, I was inspired and my GPA reflects this. Move on, okay? A lot of people don't know how to address that. So if it applies to you, I would say 1 sentence can get to them, all right? So in the programs where, like CSUN, not every program is this way, it is just a fact. But in programs where they look, what was your GPA overall, what's your GPA in the major? And you see there's that discrepancy, you can use a 1 sentence explanation there. Don't dwell on it, move on, okay?
I will spend many hours computing your GPA in the major. So we know what those grades are compared to what you had before that.
Yeah. So there's a way out, right? There's a way to address it. This is a positive thing. I'm telling you because this is a positive thing. But sometimes we forget to ask about that, all right? Okay, so open, close, GRE, NAT we did, application for CSUN, there are 2. Wherever you're applying, make sure you find that out. Many times the department has its own separate application, and you still have to apply to the university at large. Hit the due dates, especially for the department. Sometimes the university due dates are a little bit later. They say, oh, final transcripts must be submitted no later than February 1st. If the department's due date, wherever you are, is January 1st, January 15th, January 30th, everything needs to be done. Don't rely on, okay, I'll get, this happens, here sometimes it happens, used to happen all the time at Fullerton. The applications would close for the department, and then Fullerton would later send the transcripts to the departments, because their university deadline was later. Then the department would look and say, well, this application is incomplete, because the transcripts weren't there. Well, they were, but you gave them to the university. So whatever is required, whatever the earliest due date is, whether it's the university or the department, have everything completed by then to that appropriate source. It's another one of those hidden uh-ohs that you can encounter, and then someone says, yeah, I didn't get your application, or it was rejected because it was incomplete, you were missing 3 transcripts. No, but I sent it to the university. Yeah, but their due date was February 1st, and ours was January 15th or January 1st. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Questions? Yeah. Yeah.
Regarding the resume, would it be okay if we put in a CV? And if we put in a CV, how long do you recommend it to, like, the minimum or the maximum?
So a lot of CVs, even for faculty, they ask you to try and keep it to 2 pages if you can, you know.
Thank you.
That's probably a realistic CV. Yeah. Yeah.
For the letters of rec,
Sure.
when we apply, do we have to put in the official transcript before we indicate the emails of the professors who we're asking the letters for?
Yeah.
So like, do we have to basically have the whole application finished before we send out?
Good question. So when I just said yeah, that's why you never want an edited, digital feed, because my yeah was just like a vocal encouragement for you to keep going. Most of the applications, they will ask you earlier to put in the email addresses for those individuals writing you the letter. So that it gives you time to spend more days, more weeks completing, the application, but as soon as you put in those emails, they get sent out. Yeah, so let's hope every place that you're applying, the letters of reference or recommendation come earlier rather than later. Yeah. So we should probably start getting those in November, if not October, from some of your applications, even though you're not gonna hit that final submit button until January. Yeah, good question. What other questions? Yes?
Is there a difference when you guys are looking at applicants of someone who has like 5 CD classes completed versus someone who has like all of them completed?
Yes.
Okay.
So the question is, for someone who only has 5 CD classes completed and somebody that has, more than that. So it depends on the program, like our program, in order to submit an application, you must have at least 18 credits completed.
Graded CD courses on your transcript.
Right. San Diego State, I haven't looked at their application this year, they used to say 12. In order for your application to be, accepted there. That's not saying those are the only ones, but you had to have had at least 12 units completed, meaning graded. We are at least 18. So if you had 5 classes and they're 3 credits each, and that ends up with, 15 credits, your application is not competitive. Right, we need at least 18, and then we know that you've probably got 4 more, maybe 5 more courses in progress in spring, and that'll bring you up to the 28-30 units of graded work, that makes you competitive.
Okay.
Yeah. So at least, for us, at least 18 graded units in the program. Check with every other site to where you're applying. They may have something different. Yeah.
Okay, so even though, let's say the application, it opens on October 1st,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't necessarily better to submit it earlier.
No.
It's
Yeah.
better to turn it in much later, before the due date, with much more information and transcript.
I would say that, what were you gonna say?
Yes, because, it's not a first come, first serve in any way at all. Cause what's gonna happen, all those applications come in, and the January 15 deadline hits, and then we start organizing them. So when I start looking at them, I don't even know which ones were submitted first and which ones were submitted later. So you wanna get started on it, cause you need the letters of you need to give the recommenders time to write them and organize them. But, you wanna wait to get that fall transcript, if you've got CD courses on the fall transcript, definitely.
So always check to where you're applying. In the SLIPA program at Loma Linda, I think it's a first come, first serve. So you submit your SLIPA information, when they hit a certain number, the application process typically closes. So, you know, that's not your graduate school, right, but that's the SLIPA program is there. So, you know, those are the types of things that you read on the website. But here, definitely, and most places, if they have an application deadline, they don't process and they won't discriminate. They won't make decisions ahead of that deadline, because that's why they gave you a deadline.
Look for wording that says open application or something like that. That means, or rolling applications, that means that they will evaluate them as they come in. But when there's like, when it doesn't say that and it just says a deadline, then they usually wait till they have all of them in and then evaluate them. And the letters of recommendation, it's your responsibility to get them in. A lot of programs do not like send you reminders. You know, your application isn't complete, it isn't this, we don't have, we may not even realize you don't have all 3 letters of recommendation in until the end of January when we're organizing all the applications. In which case, then you're coming up short. Some programs, we had a student a couple years ago apply to Columbia, right? This was a great student, she thought it would be great to move to New York, right? She only had 2 out of 3 of her letters of recommendation. They wouldn't even process her application. So, you know, and their response to her was, well, it's your responsibility.
And they can say that because usually you can check on the website. As soon as the letter gets submitted, remember, you get an email that says your letter has been submitted. So they are expecting you to track it. CAD, CDS, you know, it tells you who's outstanding, who's waiting. So you're expected to log into those sites and, okay, Dr. Seymour still hasn't sent, you know, I'm gonna send her a little bit of a reminder, you know, type of thing.
You just mentioned it, but when reminding a recommender about the recommendation, like, how annoying is too much reminder?
Yeah, it's a professional call, isn't it? Yeah, that's a professional call. And we kind of have to leave that up to you and your personality, and we know, you know, it's amazing our personalities. Some of us can get away with bugging somebody a lot and people don't find it annoying, and then sometimes you said one time, oh, by the way, you know, they react to you. I don't know, our personalities are what they are. I would say a daily reminder is too much. But, you know, if we're getting close and we're, you know, a month away, you know, a weekly reminder, carefully worded, you know, is not too much.
Well, and I think there was a very important piece of information in that, and that is when it starts getting close. Because you may submit my name as your recommender in November, but, you know, midterms, Thanksgiving, whatever, I'm not writing any of those letters until probably after Christmas. So, right, because then I have time to do that, so, and I'll be that 16 hours a day writing letters of recommendation, but, you know, so don't start sending me reminders in, you know, November, December, early on. Wait until, I'd say January 1st-ish. Unless you have applications that are due earlier, then that's definitely a good thing to do. Hey, as a reminder, you know, such and such university has an earlier deadline than some of the rest.
Yeah.
Because I will forget that.
Most of us think of January. That's the majority of them,
Yeah.
January, February, March. Some of them are March.
But please don't say, I gave you the tracking sheet and it says that it's due December 1st, and you know, don't do it that way. But the reminder that the December 1st deadline is a month and a half before most of it, that's a nice reminder, because I may lose track of that.
I just want to quickly remind everyone to double check the dates that are posted on EdFind because some universities have changed their policies since EdFind was updated. I think the earliest I've seen is December 1st, some are December 15th for the application deadline. So just make sure to double check with the department website.
That's a great reminder. So, again, there are some institutions that said December 15th and now they moved it to the 1st. Others at December 30th, they moved it to December 1st. You go ahead and keep up on that. And remember, that also means that you're submitting a transcript that shows your course is in progress. They're not gonna be asking you for your fall grades. What's that all about? Yeah.
So if we're doing speech pathology, but we ask a professor that's an audiologist for a letter of recommendation, that in any way weaken our chances compared to if we have the 2 letters of recommendation?
Well, we
speech
just don't like
pathologists?
those audiologists. Yeah.
So it would.
Was that person one of your instructors?
Yes, but I just didn't know if it was, and if it made it better to have the 2 letters of recommendation from 2 speech pathologists and not 1 speech and 1 audiologist.
Can that person talk to your academic skills?
Yes.
Can that person talk to your interpersonal skills?
Yes.
Can that person talk to collaboration with peers and other professionals?
Yes.
Can that person talk to your contributions to the community?
I would have to talk to her.
Uh-huh.
I haven't, so I had her over the summer, so I've talked to her like once, since then.
So you're gonna update the professor and then the
Yeah.
That's a
I
great
just,
letter.
I haven't asked her, I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask that before.
Yeah, it's a great letter.
Yeah.
So again, this is an academic individual, it's a related field, and can speak to all those important components in the letter. This is hopefully, you've said, can you write me a supportive letter? And the person will say yes, that is a good letter.
And we admire our colleagues.
Yes, we do.
Whether that colleague is a part-time person with a master's degree or a part-time person with a PhD or AUD, or, someone who's been here for 30 years like I have, we admire each other and we're gonna respect those letters of recommendation. So, whether their office is on the 1st floor, the 2nd floor, or the 3rd floor isn't gonna matter.
But this is also important if you're applying to, the general
That's
pool.
true.
Yeah.
Again, as long as the person can speak to, and they're gonna state that, I am comfortable because I know this individual from office hours and, contact in the hallway. The reader will read that and go, I'm gonna believe those ratings. Yeah.
Would it hurt your chances of getting into a program if you were to apply to both their speech and their audiology at the same school?
You need to write a different intent letter.
Right.
If you wrote the same letter of intent, I think that would hurt so the question is, if you applied to both speech pathology and to audiology, different programs, does that hurt your application? You have to be able to write a different intent letter. They're not the same letter. So, and we have had people that we know are applying to different programs depending upon the place.
So I heard that the department might see it as you're undecided or you don't know what you wanna do, but like, let's say you like both and you wanna apply to both, just as long as you write different letters of intent?
Well, it's more than just write a letter of different intent. I mean, you have to provide supportive information that if you're going into that field, you're gonna be happy and you're gonna follow through. It used to be that in our field, you could get both degrees simultaneously. That has long gone away, but many of us that have been in the field for a while know those people who are duly degreed, have great respect for them, and they've kept active in both fields.
On a similar topic, we have an online program, a master's degree that's completely online. These 2 programs are totally separate. I mean, they're not totally separate in terms of academic, it's the same faculty.
Yep.
You know, their offices are on the second floor. They're part of the same department. But the application process, the coursework, the financial base is different and separate. They don't interface. The stateside students cannot take the online courses. The online students can't come and take the stateside courses, so they don't interact in that way. We used to have students who applied to both, hoping to improve their chances. That made the application decisions really hard for us, because I have to predict, not just Seymour and I together, but really I have to predict how many people we're gonna send letters of acceptance to, you know, knowing that not everyone's gonna come here, and we want about 40 people in seats in the fall. Okay, so if students have applied to 2 programs and I don't know which one they want to come to, that makes the decision hard for me. We actually shifted the application cycles so that they are at different times now. So it's not, you're not, you know, applying to both of those speech pathology programs at the same time. Now, the speech audiology is a slightly different situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's allowed to apply to both the online program and the residential program at the same time?
You can't, because our deadline for applications is January 15th. Their application cycle is June, their deadline
April
is
to June.
June, yeah,
Yep.
April to June.
Yeah.
So if you applied for that one, then what is the time frame for a notice? So if you weren't accepted, you could apply for the online one?
Well, we're gonna notify, they open up in April and they close in June. We ask you, you have to tell us in April if you're coming here. Yeah, so you're not in both pools. You told us, yes or no, you're coming here. So, yeah, that way you don't have both applications open. Right. I keep missing somebody over here, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, cause I work in the, online master's program, so I know, some information if you guys have any questions regarding that. And I did wanna mention, for the GRE, so we have some students who ask, regarding the GRE, and we have to make sure that they're 5 years, like, recent, so they have to be taken within the 5 years. Also, something to mention is the transcripts, they have to be signed and they have to be sealed. If one of them is missing, we can't really receive them. So I'm pretty sure it's the same for the residential area.
Only ours are submitted online.
Oh, that, okay.
Yeah.
So if you are applying to the master's online program, they have to be signed and they have to be,
Yeah, different processes.
yeah.
Yeah, hang on just a minute. Yes.
What percent of non-CSUN students are accepted into the program, if you had to estimate?
That's a good question. We are holistic in terms of, it's not, there are some programs that really tailor it to their own individuals. We are looking for a balance in a variety of manners. The last 2 years, it looked like, of those that accepted and came after offers were made, we had about 1/3 that were post-baccalaureate, so this is, pre-SLP, so they already had 1 bachelor's, they took the 30 units, now they're coming back. 1/3 were from that group. Then we had, a little more than 1/3 that were CSUN people, and then a little bit less than 1/3 that were from other areas. That's the last 2 years of the offers that were made, that seems how the mix ended up. Again, we have made offers that people didn't take us up on, but that's how it ended up in the mix.
Students do ask me, you know, if we give preference to CSUN students. I get email all the time from students in other programs, asking me a lot of these same kinds of questions. The answer to that is no, we don't, sort of. The sort of is because we know you guys, so that when we're reading these letters of recommendation, you know, Dr. Yu may be reading a file, I wrote the letters of recommendation, but she may have had you in class, so she knows when I'm saying you're this, you're that, or the other, she's like, yeah. So that part of it, if there's a gray area because we know who you are, that is a subtle advantage in a way. You know, if there's two applications that seem sort of balanced because we know one of the applicants is a nice person and is not gonna cause a lot of problems when they get out doing their clinical work. The other is an unknown, that's a little bit of an advantage. But there isn't a hard advantage. We don't give any like points or anything like that for being a CSUN student.
Well, that's why I was curious, because obviously we're applying to other places and
Yes.
they don't know us, all they have are
Yes.
letters of recommendation and then, our scores, so.
Right, your statements, and it is, some of those other places you're applying, their first sweep might be GRE and GPA. They looked at your GRE, they looked at GPA, they took the first 90 people because they had 400 apply.
Yeah, programs are different in how they
Yeah.
evaluate applications.
Our first sweep is the application complete? If it's complete, and it qualifies, every application gets reviewed, everyone.
Well, everyone, I just wanna say this again, everyone gets reviewed by me.
Oh,
And
yes,
I
it
do-
does, yes, it does.
I do then, do the only really hard, what we call hard filter, other than complete application, is that the GPA is a 3.0.
Right.
The overall GPA, actually,
Yeah.
because that's a university
That's a university requirement. That's our hard sweep. Everything after that gets reviewed.
And it gets reviewed by more than one person, usually
Yes.
three, me
Usually three.
plus two others. There's no way for one person, I just wanna say this too, I'll just get it out there. If you've had a negative experience with one person on the faculty, that person cannot keep you from getting into grad school. If you have been reviewed, make our cut, we just don't do that, not, everybody else would have to agree with it. So if you've had a difficult time in a class and had some sort of a run-in, but everything else is golden, that one person cannot keep you out of the program.
And that one person is big enough to say, this was my class,
Right.
this was my experience. Then that was it.
And we've had people overruled. I'll just say that too.
Yeah.
Does CSUN have a wait list? Is there?
A wait pool.
Wait.
A wait pool, because, yes, because we have probably 300 applicants, right? So the first offers will go out, and then there is a pool. Yeah, because somebody's gonna turn us down. They are.
But we call it a pool rather than a wait list.
Yeah.
Because we have certain priorities and we wanna keep them balanced. So, the post-BA people who are not undergrads and they're coming back and they're taking a couple courses at a time, they tend to have 4.0s. So, and, that kind of person, we wanna limit the numbers because we know our undergrads who are taking other courses and involved in other activities may not have that 4.0, which, oh my gosh, that is, just amazing that somebody could even get a 4.0 across the board. So, we don't wanna get too many of those post-backs at the expense of our undergrads, really, just to put it
Bluntly and truthfully.
bluntly.
That's not a holistic process.
So we have proportions that are part of our mission, if you would, in the department. And it guides our holistic process.
Yeah.
So we call it a pool because if, we need a post-back person to keep our proportion, we go into that group. If we need, an undergrad, we go into that, group or whatever.
So it's a pool. It's a good question. These are all great questions. Do you feel encouraged from today? Good, good. That is what is so important, to get factual information and still feel very encouraged, because that is our role for this discussion.
And you know what your next step is now when you leave this room, what you need to do next, or things you need.
Dear Dr. Strickler says, I'm in your class currently this semester. I will be applying for graduate school in fall of 2017. I'm considering you for a letter recommendation. Would you please watch me this semester?
I mean, almost anyone who's in both of my 451 and 416 classes, I imagine, may be asking me for letters. Yeah.
I can see it. Okay, yes, Nisla, so you have a super duper drawing, yes? And remember, super duper is a company, and yes, they are super and duper.